potential £40 million move has been kiboshed. A West Ham defender is attracting yet more interest from other big clubs, and West Ham are chasing the next Mohammed Kudus. Welcome everyone to the West Ham Transfer Rumours Show. Happy Saturday. I hope you've had a lovely day and looking forward to a Sunday without football, without the stress of having to worry about what the hell West Ham are going to do without the likes of Jared Bowen, Lucas Paquetá and Mohammed Kudus. I don't need that stress this weekend, so I'm just taking it chill, and I hope you are too, and I hope you're enjoying it. But let's get straight to it, shall we? Let's start with the £40 million move for Conor Gallagher, which is no longer on the cards. This one's been rumoured for a little while. We've obviously been linked with Conor Gallagher for a long time. It feels like every transfer window at some point you go, oh, West Ham, Conor Gallagher. That sort of adds up. And there was some scuttlebutt, some major rumours that we were going to be interested in him, and that £40 million would be the amount it would take to prize him away from Chelsea. However, Sean Whetstone today on Twitter has said that is not the case. Quote, West Ham will not be signing Conor Gallagher this January. Evening Standard journalist Dan Kilpatrick had suggested the Hammers could set to challenge Spurs for Gallagher's signature this month, but that will not be the case. Good, I think. I believe this. Sean is one of these people who is well informed. He is linked with very high people at the club. Sean Whetstone, of course, West Ham Football on Twitter, if you don't know him. If you don't know him, what the hell are you doing? I'll be honest with you. But he is someone who's well connected, and I think this is probably the case. You know, it might have been not been the case at the beginning of the window. That could have been someone we were interested in before these injuries happened. But given the injury situation, it seems foolhardy for us and probably a big mistake to end up spending a hell of a lot of money. Probably money we don't have. That would probably be money we'd have to sell the likes of again and other people who are actually worth something, Saïd Benrahma and other people, to even be able to afford. To be able to do that on a midfielder that we don't necessarily need right now probably would be a mistake. That's a summer signing. That's something where we can revisit in the summer once we've got all of our players back from injury. The injury crisis is over. Kudus is back from AFCON. We could then look at these sort of signings again and go, right, let's buy an upgrade for Souček, or let's buy this, let's buy those. These sort of moves make sense for the summer. They don't for right now. They might have a week ago, before the injuries, before AFCON, they might have made more sense. But now I think we have to really focus in on the right moves, and spending that much money. Hey, if this was a loan to buy situation where it was not that much money and then we buy him in the summer, then I wouldn't necessarily be against it. But with the fact that it would have to be about 40 million reportedly, seems like a mistake to me. So for me, I'm happy about that for now. Summer, we can revisit it. But for now, January, Gallagher doesn't make too much sense to me. Let's talk about Ben Johnson, because he is attracting yet more interest. We've already heard of the likes of Leeds being interested in him quite heavily, but there is a range of clubs. This again coming from Sean on Twitter, so shout out to Sean. I hope you're doing well, bro. Leeds United, Sheffield United, Southampton, and now Glasgow Rangers are all interested in signing West Ham defender Ben Johnson. Leeds, whose only proper right back is former Hammer Sam Byram, is said to be interested in a loan deal, but West Ham will try to do a permanent deal as he is out of contract this June. This is obviously coming off the back of a lot of talk about his contract, the fact he wasn't playing for a long time. But I did find it interesting that the second carer left, not only was he back in the squad, but actually he's been starting games, and to be honest with you, looking quite good. If he does want to earn a contract, he's doing himself a lot of favours with the performances he's put in of late. It's not been enough to save a whole team. It's not been Dimitri Payet in 2015 levels. But let's be real. I think, for example, in the Liverpool game, I thought he was our best player. And I think when he's played both times he's played recently, it's three times. I've been really impressed by him, and I want him to succeed. I hope he doesn't leave. But there is a whole host of clubs here that would make sense for him. I personally think Ben Johnson is good enough to play in the Premier League. I know I'm probably alone in that. I know a lot of people don't particularly rate him that highly. I personally think he is good enough to do that. He has some limitations. I don't think he's the most dynamic right back you're ever going to see in your life. I think when you compare him to even Vladimir Soufal, who I wouldn't class as dynamic as such, his lack of attacking output is in stark contrast compared to him. But I do think he is reliable. I think he is good enough, and I think his versatility is really important. And actually, for us as a club, I think it makes more sense to keep him than it does to sell him. Gio spoke about the other rumours to Leeds and everyone else the other day and said it's not going to happen because of his homegrown status and stuff like that. I think that is super important for us. And I think it almost makes paying him... Do I think 60k is what he's worth? No, probably not. But it almost makes it worth it, specifically to us as a team who are fighting in Europe constantly, because you don't only have that homegrown quota that the Premier League also enforce, you have that club-to-trained quota. And frankly, with Conor Coventry going, we don't have many of those left. In fact, we've got two. We have Anang and we have Johnson. And that is nowhere near enough. 4 is the number you need for Europe. Otherwise, you don't get to play players. And although with Conor Coventry leaving, this is something Gio spoke about yesterday, he wasn't really involved in any squads. So it doesn't really matter if you lose him, even though you're losing that number. You're not losing anything because he wasn't playing in any of the matches. Ben Johnson is starting to play. And actually he's putting in good performances. So that's something that's going to have to be worked out in the second half of the season, is his contract situation. If, as Sean was sort of alluding to here, if West Ham can't get a permanent transfer fee this winter, they could ask for a larger loan fee instead, plus full wages, saving them around 500 grand, but there remains a chance he leaves on a free transfer this June. Again, with all the injuries, we really have to pick and choose what we're doing money-wise, and I don't think 500 grand makes it worth losing someone who is a useful player for the squad in terms of playing right back, in terms of playing left back, which a lot of people have been saying recently he might even be better at. And listen, he has played centre-back. I'm not keen to see him there again, but he has done it in a back three and some other systems. So I don't think realistically we should be looking to let this one happen. However, I could see a situation in which financially it would make sense if there was something rumbling in the background where we maybe get a backup for Vladimir Coufal, maybe a second choice, even someone who could take over as first choice. But again, with these injuries, it really means we have to pick and choose what we do financially. And I'm not sure this one makes financial sense to me. Again, this could be another thing that's looked on in the summer when he's in free contracts and all these clubs can go wild, and then he's more likely to get higher wages. But I hope in general that we keep Ben Johnson. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Again, I know it's not a popular thing. I think he's good enough, and having someone who's versatile like that is really useful. Clubs in Italy love a versatile defender, someone who can play here, there and everywhere. David Santon's played at a top level in Champions League clubs for a long time purely because he can do that. There are players who do it, and I think he could be ours. Not every player who comes through our youth academy has to be a superstar. This is something we're going to have to sort of come to terms with a little bit with our current crop that are coming through, who look brilliant and look like they might be able to actually make it in Premier League. Not all of them are going to be Declan Rice, not all of them would be at the level of someone like Jared Bowen. Some of them will be Ben Johnson level, and that's okay, because if you have someone who's homegrown, who's club trained and is good enough to play for you as a squad player, that does not cost you anything, especially with the English tax, as we all know. That's a big positive. So we'll see how that one goes. And the final story today, big story at least, West Ham are chasing the next Mohammed Kudus. This one's coming via X. West Ham employee, of course, over on the West Ham Way Patreon. Go check it out. Shout out X. Quote, following Mohammed Kudus' amazing impact to the club have paid some strong interest in the famous academy in Ghana called Right to Dream. Now, this is one of these names that you might be hearing quite a lot recently. They are growing in popularity. They received a huge amount of investment. I think it was last year or the year before. Basically, they're an academy in Ghana, specifically an academy. They're not tied to a club or anything, although the people who own them have gone on to buy FC Nordsjælland in Denmark. They own a club in Egypt. I think it might be TFC, or I read it as TUT. I've never heard it said out loud. It could be TOT FC. I don't know. But them, and I think they've got a franchise coming next year in the MLS. I can't remember where it is, but they might have a franchise in the MLS coming. And sort of building out an academy from there with these affiliated clubs. And that's the route Mohammed Kudus took. He went through the Right to Dream Academy in Ghana, then joined FC Nordsjælland in Denmark before joining Ajax for about 9 to 10 million, I believe I read it was at the time. And then obviously, of course, joining us. And when you see these sort of step levels, the earlier you get in, the less you obviously pay, Kudus, great example, right? 9 to 10 million, 35 or whatever it was when we bought him. So paying more interest to these players earlier on is definitely hugely beneficial. And that's the difference between us and, say, Brighton. I know the Brighton method of recruitment gets spoken about a lot, and I think it's often misleaded as sort of like, oh, they just go around and they buy young players. But it's that idea of, if you buy these sort of lesser known players from lesser known clubs, for example, someone who comes through the Right to Dream Academy and then goes to SC Nordsjælland is going to cost significantly less than someone like Conor Gallagher who came through at Chelsea, because everyone knows Chelsea, everyone knows Conor Gallagher. People don't know Mohammed Kudus at the time, or a couple of other players, because that's the other thing about when you talk about academies, you're like, right, that's all well and good, like they might be doing good things, but who are they actually producing? They had 7 graduates played in the 2022 World Cup for their respective countries. I think they were all Ghana, to be fair. And X mentions two of their graduates. The first one is Ernest Appiah Nuamah, sorry. He's playing currently for Lyon in France, in Ligue 1. You may know of him. He's doing quite well there. There's some complicated transfer business. He got bought by a team in, I think it was Denmark, and then instantly loaned to Lyon because of money. And there's a bunch of dodgy stuff. He's someone who X mentions, and probably because of that dodgy money stuff and the fact that he is almost certainly going to join Lyon in a permanent in the summer. That one's probably... Just keep that idea, Nuamah, in your head, but probably not going to happen. The other one I'll get into in a second because that seems like the stronger link. A couple of other players you may know is Kalamadine Sulemana, who came through and was playing, went to Nordsjælland again, joined Rennes, who did really well in Ligue 1 last year. Ligue 1. He was doing bits there and then ended up joining Southampton and has been playing basically every single game for them this season, which is an interesting one. And again, someone to keep an eye on. However, of course, the big one is Mohammed Kudus, who we all know. And I'll be honest, I think we all love. But the player that X linked us strongly with is Ibrahim Osman, a player who we also really like, that has had the same path from the academy to FC Nordsjælland, is Ibrahim Osman. The club are expected to test the water with this signing should the manager agree to it. They will face a lot of competition for the player, however, with Arsenal, Brighton, Borussia Mönchengladbach of Germany, and a whole host of other clubs expressing an interest in his signature, but this is one to keep an eye on. And it's the sort of thing that I would love to see. It obviously depends on Tim Steidten, and again, when we talk about the future of the club, we often think about it being the Brighton model or nothing. And actually, there are a lot of ways to get value for money from signings. It doesn't all have to be signing 18-year-old wonder kids and then hoping they work out. You can do other signings. Actually, you can make some brilliant value for money signings who are in their 30s, come in for a season or two, do really well for you, and then they leave, and they don't cost you really anything to bring in, they don't cost you anything on the way out, and they just do really well in the meantime. You know, James Milner has basically made a career doing that, right? There is ways to do value for money that isn't necessarily going and buying wonder kids all the time. However, I cannot act like I don't think that is something we should at least be investing in. People, not necessarily Osman, could be him, could be someone else, going out and getting a lot of these people who are value for money and then finding loans for them. Because again, there is a lot of pressure for someone like that to come into West Ham instantaneously and hit the ground running. Having intermediary clubs, you know, the Brighton thing, buy a player, loaning them out to a different club, bringing them back once they've grown and developed somewhat. And actually, that's the big thing for me as we go forward as a club, not just aiming for these sort of players, but also being able to loan them out correctly, because that's something that's really difficult to do and something we have completely and utterly failed at for a long time. This season, I have a lot more hope for that. Freddie Potts obviously doing brilliantly at Wycombe. Kadua has joined him at Wycombe, which is, I think, a good sign. It shows that, or at least I hope that we've looked at them and gone, Kadua could play for them. Kadua fits in their system. Kadua will have certain aspects of his game raised by playing for them and developed for them, which will make him better when he comes back to us because we know them. We just played them at the youth level. Freddie Potts is already there. Kadua actually made the bench for their last game, their game today. I think it was a 1-1 draw with Wycombe. I believe there was like a 98-minute equaliser or something because it seemed to be 1-0 for ages. And then I saw the added time and then I checked just before I started recording this video and it was 1-1. So it must have been an incredibly late equaliser there. Don't know what's happened. Don't think Kadua made his appearance but did make the bench. That's the sort of stuff we need to be better at. And if we do go and sign people like Ibrahim Osman or anyone else from Right to Dream or Nordsjælland or anywhere else, these young players who potentially aren't good enough to start in the Premier League, but we can buy them, we could loan them to someone and then have it. And actually, we should be able to supercharge this model. We are West Ham United in the Premier League. We have more money than a lot of these clubs. You know, there's a reason we can go to Ajax and buy Kudus and Alvarez in the same window. Ajax are a huge club. We have the money to be able to supercharge a model like this, similarly to what Brighton are doing, but other clubs as well. You know, there are clubs all over Europe would be looking at someone like Osman and going, right, we can get them before they become a superstar. We get them on the next totem pole in their career ladder or whatever, and we pay less and then we can go on to sell them for more. We should be able to do that more frequently than any other club because we have more money than most of these clubs. Not in the Premier League. I'm not suggesting we have more money than, I don't know, Arsenal, for example, or a team who are linked with them as well. But I would be pretty certain we have more money than Borussia Mönchengladbach. I would be pretty certain we have a lot of money, more money than a whole host of the other clubs who have been linked to players like this. We should be able to do this, and it's something we should be looking to do at, taking calculated bets and making, listen, I'm not saying necessarily affiliating ourselves with Nordsjælland, but I can't remember what the club is called, the Austrian club that we have an affiliation with, where we bought that Scottish guy who went back on loan and it was never officially announced, but their owner sort of semi-announced it in December. I can't even remember the player's name. I can't remember the club's name. But people like that, being able to loan people to there. We had links to Brazil recently. Rob Newman went across there. Clubs like that, being able to link them out, find the youth players before they happen, loan them out to specific clubs, get them the experience, get them game time, develop them, and then just drop them in the first team. I love that idea. And I hope this is the start of us sort of looking to explore it a little bit. I'm not necessarily putting all my hopes on Ibrahim Osman coming through and being the next Mohammed Kudus coming into the team and being as effective as he has been. But listen, if we can sign him for 10, 15 million like Ajax did for Kudus, and then he comes in, goes out on loan a bit, and then we sell him for 30 million in 2 years, that's a huge benefit for us. And the last thing I just wanted to say, just in terms of transfers, we were obviously linked to Jonathan Rowe this window quite heavily, the Norwich player. If you haven't already, go check out the goal he scored against Hull. I think it was last night. Unreal goal. I've seen it on Twitter all day today. Definitely something you should go and look at if you haven't already, because my lord, was it an absolute banger. And hey, if you thought this video was an absolute banger, I didn't, but if you thought it was, then make sure to like the video, hit the subscribe button, because we've got plenty more stuff to come, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow. We have an interesting video that I'm editing at the moment that will be up at some point. I don't know when yet, that Gio put a lot of effort into and I've edited. Which I would highly recommend you check out, because I think it's an interesting video, and one of those ones where it typically won't get as many views as other videos we do on the channel. However, I think it's interesting and something that I would love to see the West Ham community doing more of. So I was happy when Gio actually went out and did it, because it's something I would love to watch if I'm not actually editing it. So check that out when it comes out tomorrow. And then of course Gio will be back doing all the other videos and whatnot as well. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you. Hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff, and we'll see you tomorrow. See you later. Bye.